Top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live from Dawson Street, the Newsfirst studios, broadcasting on TV1. And my guest this morning is Mr. Lanka, attorney at law, and the man many believe to be at the center of power in Sri Lanka. Very good morning to you, Shiral.
Good morning. Good morning.
And it's lovely having you on the program after several months of absence.
Thank you.
You've been monitoring all these events, have you?
Yes.
In the background. And what's happening, Mr. Lanka? We have got the Minister Malik Samaravikrama, former chairman of the United National Party, held to be a long-term friend of the Prime Minister, and he's going to sell off various public enterprises, completely against the ideology of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, whose leader is our president. What's happening?
Yeah, but my opinion is that although Mr. Samaravikrama has expressed his views, you have to consider those statements as one-sided statements.
Yeah.
Because this government is comprised with two parties, and it's a consensual government. In a consensual government, what is important is deliberation. So any party can come out with a policy statement, but ultimately you have to go it through a grinding mill. So if you look at this kind of situation or policy statement, always now after very recently the President and the Prime Minister has agreed to set up an internal body between two parties to go into or deliberate into very critical points and come into a certain consensus. So therefore I consider this only as a political statement. So there
it's a sort of proposal from one side.
One side, yes. That would be the best way to understand these things. So whenever the media reports something, always you have to understand that there would be some kind of discourse.
I see.
So that's the situation under the new government.
But I was listening to Minister Samaravikrama yesterday on television, and he said that there will be a Public Enterprise Act and a board, and this will all happen, he said, within a month. Now, I thought to myself, where is the discussion on this? Public Enterprise Act, he said. He spoke of an act and a board. It's almost as though he's just doing what he wants. Where's the discussion with the public, as in with the rest of Parliament, for example?
Yeah, if you look back, if you go back in 2015, when President put forward his manifesto.
Yeah.
In the manifesto, we have discussed certain aspects of this kind of policy. Quoting the Singaporean model. And discussing and proposing that we should have some kind of bring efficiency and productivity into public enterprises. And talking about Singaporean Tamsak model. I don't know whether you can remember at that time Mr. Rajapaksa's regime was very critical about that. And I think there is a need within the society to have some sort of a productive approach toward these public enterprises, because the expenditure that the state is investing on public enterprises are huge. It's sometimes those investments are not producing back. But if I come to that, so therefore there is a dire need right now to adopt some kind of policy on public enterprises in this country, including Sri Lankan Airlines. Those are the big time things, but here there are even smaller ones also. According to COP report, by 2013 there are more than 1,000 public enterprises who are running at loss in Sri Lanka. Therefore, they are eating the public wealth.
Indeed.
Right? So, therefore, there is a need to do something. But that does not mean that you can overnightly, you can bring a policy.
That's true.
That you need a discourse, you need a change management approach. You have to get hold of these people.
To achieve efficiency and professionalism and service delivery levels to go up, surely the answer is not by selling them.
Yeah, definitely. You know that when you take up this productivity approach, you have to analyze every public enterprises through that kind of indicator. So, what are the arms or limbs of that public enterprise which are not productive and which are productive? Now, I can give you one example. Now, if you take CB or electricity, there are three arms or three components within the electricity production.
Which is
one is generation, then you transforming, and then you distributing. But I don't think there are certain, when it comes to that area, productivity matters at the distribution end. So that is the area where you can bring private sector approach.
Indeed.
But for transformation, definitely the state has to take the burden. Likewise, you know, every public enterprise, you have to dichotomize the whole thing. And then you have to look into what kind of privatization you have to. No, it is not in terms of privatization, in terms of productivity. Has to be brought in.
But Mr. Laktilaka, what about this? Many of these state enterprises and institutions, they're sitting on huge assets in terms of, let's say, real estate and land and so on. Why can't, if this was in the private sector, they would sell their assets to come out of their difficulties. They could always do, they could, in the UK and in other countries, we see them doing, they sell and then, they sell and then they lease back the same office, for example, so that they release their capital and get on with dealing with their debts and so on, instead of running along to the treasury every time. And then you have that's one thing. Then you have minister like Minister Rajita, who's giving a statement or an opinion that the Chinese will be given Sri Lankan land for the monies the country owes to them. But on the other hand, it was the same minister who was opposed and said that we will not sell land in our country. There's all these mismatches coming. What's going on?
You know, in politics, always you have to consider most of the statements as rhetorics. Rhetorics makes politics.
In that case, Minister Rajita must be.
No, I'm not saying that that particular statement by the minister is rhetoric. But now in Sri Lanka, when you talk about, when in media, when you look at a particular politician or government personality, most of those statements are rhetorics. Sometimes, perhaps. So that's why I'm saying that when you put a serious approach into a statement, first look, take it from the bump. But on the other hand, when it comes to these issues, privatization or infusing productivity into public enterprises is a need of the hour.
Indeed.
Right? But the particular model that has to be adapted is still open.
But I think it's part of this overall concept that government has no business being in business.
I personally, I don't believe that, because In a country, always it is done through a political economy. Political economy is not only economy, it is politics also.
But Mr. Laktilaka, what about this business where institution after institution, year in, year out, are continuing to make losses and losses and losses, and they go off to the treasury and they get money and we're borrowing to pay for that? Isn't it better to sell these loss-making institutions so that they can be given to the private sector, who will run it as a business with a mind towards the bottom line?
No, what I am saying is selling is not the single option. There are multiple options.
Yeah.
While accepting the fact, as you suggested, public enterprises are running at loss, and it's a burden for national economy. That is the analysis part. But the solution part, when it comes to solution part, there are so many options,
including perhaps public-private partnerships.
There are so many models. So therefore, we cannot suggest a linear model. There would be several ways: public-private partnerships, selling or closing down. Sometimes there are certain institutions, even you have go into a public-private partnership, those are not sustainable.
But Mr. Laktilaka, if we go down to another level, we have situations where there are people with money. They invest in companies. They put their money in there. They don't necessarily run that company. They don't come anywhere near running it. They're just investors. So in the same way, many of these government institutions have got assets, like we say, and they have shown a remarkable ineptitude of running those businesses year in and year out. Forget the ideological differences. Bottom line has been always a continuous drain on our economy. So, but they've got some assets. So why can't they transform those assets into equity and get the private sector to run those businesses?
Technically and principally you are correct, but if you go back to the past, we have seen such entrepreneurs have come and taken over the business and sold everything and vanished from the country. Now there are instances. Now if you look at the Sapugaskanda project, nylon project and all other projects, ultimately these so-called entrepreneurs or private sector, ultimately they sold the machinery for scrap metal and vanished. So therefore, what I am saying is, I am not saying no for everything. But what I am saying is that we must have some kind of broad policy which look at every possible option to reduce the state expenditure and maintain the productivity and give certain services to this country.
But isn't it a strange case when we have people as part of our legislative body and who are ministers and so on, who have shown remarkable failure in their own businesses, but then they become ministers and they try to run our economy? Isn't that failure? And it's a bit like the professional issue that afflicted the central bank matter. On that note, we'll take a short break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline. We'll be right back.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Welcome back. This is Newsline. My guest this morning, Mr. Shiral Laktilaka. Mr. Laktilaka, how is the way forward? We have, isn't it time that the government buckled up and focused on the economy instead of dwelling in the past?
Government is always focused with the economy. Our problem right now, I'm not an economist, but I'm a political activist. I'm looking, when I analyze the situation, only I can come out with my opinion. The country is in a dire economic situation. So that is the first thing I can come out and say. Second thing is, this country needs certain bailout, right? Bailout in terms of $2-3 billion, right? That's what I think. So how do you bring that 2-3 billion into the country? One way of investing. Now, investors normally don't come to Sri Lanka with they are not charity organizations. No, if they come in, they have to make money.
Yeah.
But Sri Lanka is a small country, small market, to invest that much of capital. Yeah. So they want to look at the broader options within the region. Yeah. So therefore, FDIs or what we call foreign direct investment are getting or coming in very slow pace. So then we have to go for loans. So that is the reality. Instead, as you correctly said, we need not to blame the past. What we have to see is how to bring this kind of $2-3 billion into country within short span of time.
Yeah.
So I think this is the country, although we are seeing right now as sort of dull or not, developing situation. This is a time where the government is looking for these investors, looking and talking to various things, people and etc. So therefore, there is a natural dull period. But I hope that within next 1 year's time, this would be changed.
Indeed, I hope so too, and I'm sure the people are hoping. But I want to tell you that I found it absolutely ironic that in the Prime Minister's visit to Indonesia yesterday, footage of that visit showed us the presence of Mr. Arjun Mahendran on that team. And what do investors say on the other side when they see that the Sri Lankan Prime Minister has brought about with him a man that the Auditor General has found fault with for a breakdown in professional standards when it was at the central bank. The President of the country has made it very clear and didn't offer him a new contract. And then you have the Prime Minister virtually flaunting this man and taking him the week before he was in Singapore. Yesterday he was in Indonesia. And so here's this man with the Auditor General saying one thing, and then he's part of this team that hopefully is trying to attract FDIs.
Yeah.
What professionalism is there?
Yeah, now first of all we have to say that individuals cannot bring economic marvels to the country. So if the government depending on one personality and say that he the only person who can bring this kind of economic opportunities to Sri Lanka, it is an exaggerated situation. Now if we discuss Mr. Arjuna Mahendran's situation in that context, sometimes some people think that Mr. Mahendran is a very important, valuable personality.
Not some people, I think it's just the Prime Minister.
So I mean within the government, then comes whether Mr. Prime Minister is thinking like that. You are correct. This government has not extended his
well, he wasn't given a new contract.
Not extended, as well as not given a new contract, and a new person has been appointed. So in that context, there is another allegation in front of the court, as well as within the society, that there is a scam happened within the central bank. In such a situation, it is not good for the government as well as for the image of the president as well as the Prime Minister.
It's all about perception.
Perception as well as image to take him here and there. So I hope that the government will take appropriate step to prevent this kind of thing.
I'm trying to think of another thing. It would have been almost like Sri Lanka Insurance hiring somebody like Emil Soundernagam to go and try and sell insurance for them.
That is true. That is true.
It's the same sort of thing. It just won't happen. Well, let's quickly move on to this this economic forum that we've had. Two economists. One, Dr. Razin Saleh, the chairman of the IPS, the Institute of Policy Studies, has been so critical of the economic policies of this government, and so too was Dr. Wijewardena. The budget was described, the two budgets were described as disastrous, and the price controls as idiocy, and the list went on. What's happening when the head of the government's own policy think tank is being critical of what's been achieved? And more importantly, he said last week that it appears that the policies are aimed at an elite in Colombo, and that the rural masses have been forgotten. That's a serious statement.
Who has said that?
Dr. Razin Saleh, the chairman of the Institute of Policy Studies.
It's very interesting to hear from a person like Mr. Saleh, who is a propounder of neoliberal economic policy in Sri Lanka, that it is based on our economic decision making is based on Colombo elitism. But anyway, they have a right to say, because I'm not that bothered about this kind of statements. As I said at the beginning, this government is a deliberative government. Deliberative government means anybody can come out with a policy or anybody can criticize. So ultimately what matters is the discourse and the outcome. So if Mr. Saleh is criticizing about the government decision making, economic decision making, it's up to him.
Policy.
Policy and decision making of economics. It's up to him. And not only he cannot wait after criticizing, but he must come out and propose the policy options, since he is the head of the Institute of Policy Studies. And that is one way. Mr. Wijewardena is always a critic for last several years, who was talking along the lines of the reducing expenditure and maintaining a stable economy. So I think these kind of critics are doing good for the country and for the economic discourse, because without...
You're doing good as long as the other side's listening.
Yeah, that is one thing. So that's why I said discourse has no one part. Discourse has several parts. It's a multi-party discourse. So it is high time for the main stakeholders of Sri Lankan economy, that is the politicians, to give a patient hearing for these kind of critics.
How much can you be patient? We are running out, like this program's running out of time. The government is running out of time too. They're 1.5 years into, it's another 3.5 years and a little bit more. The term will be finished. What's going to be their lasting legacy? A stopgap measure?
Yeah, I think if this government cannot bring economic prosperity for the country within next at least 1 year's time, we may step into a real political situation. That is my view. So therefore, still I think we have time, we have breathing space. My estimate is, but by next year budget, we have to bring some kind of economic stability to the country. If we fail by next year, then we will start to see some kind of political instability. So therefore we have to be very concerned about this situation.
You know, I think in the end, Mr. Laktilika, we need dynamism, and we need people actually to be able to bring in foreign investment. I mean, our group has got, we bought at some point, we had Singtel, we had the Malaysian government's Telecom Malaysia, we had the New Zealand government's Dairy Board here. Surely there are other people, not only Arjuna Mahendran. The economy doesn't revolve around this one man.
Exactly. That is what I have told you earlier also. One person or one group cannot bring prosperity to the country. What is needed right now is a vibrant policy.
Indeed.
Policy and policy implementers to convert this situation into a much positive situation.
Thank you. We've run out of time. Srilal Laktilaka, thank you very much for being on Newsline.
Thank you.
I look forward to welcoming you again. And thank you for watching Newsline. It's been great having you. Welcome back. We are here, same time, same place, Monday through Friday, 7 to 7:30. Take care and God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline.